All right, so how this is going to work, I'm going to talk as briefly as I can, and then I'm going to turn the stage over to our two fellows, Azine and Bruna here. But I just want to start by saying thank you. The energy in this room is pretty incredible, right? Like, all the right people are here. I have amazing students. We have board members. We have former colleagues and people like, I mean, there's this, I thank you all for taking the time on a Friday to come and do this. So I want to, for those of you who weren't here last year, and this is a bigger room than we had last year, I'll just take a brief step to talk about what we do at Outpost and what is its relationship to the community, and then its vision for the future, give some thanks, and then really kind of introduce my folks. So the residency, I call Outpost, I'm the executive director, a residency and an advocacy organization. The residency piece is the central aspect that was really the flagship program that got this stuff started. Every September, we bring two BIPOC writers from the US and Latin America up to a 30-acre property in Shaftesbury, Vermont, with time, without expectations. We believe in the work they're doing. We are drawn to and focused on emerging and early career writers, giving them all the resources one could imagine, from yoga to body work therapy, which we'll talk about with you as it relates to their own work, but most importantly, space to do their work. And so from a community perspective, this is the public-facing moment of that experience for them. They're kind of locked away doing their things, but this is their chance to kind of meet you. And thinking globally about what this does for a community like Bennington, our vision, though we are starting small, is really to add to that energy that makes this feel like a welcoming spot for folks of color to live and be energized and work. And I can just tell you from my own experience living here, but also from the folks that I've communicated, like, this is beginning to kind of do that work in a really, really lovely way. From a community perspective, this gives you an insight into some really amazing artists, but not only that, some kind of like, I knew them when moments, which I think is always fun. Bruna, of course, you've spoiled this. Normally we have to like wait for these I knew them well, but Bruna was longlisted for a National Book Award while on the property, right? So I'm on sabbatical for some reason. I think that was the day I happened to be at Williams, so I did not hear the screams on the property. But all that to say is these are folks that you will hear from and that will do incredible work in the years to come. And so on that note, this isn't just a September residency, but this is a community that we're building. Stefan and Maruseu, who were the first fellows last year, Stefan has a book coming out with Feminist Press in 2024. So on Outpost Dime, he will be back in Vermont next year. When that comes out, he will be linked with both the universities and all the bookstores in here as we kind of support and grow these careers. So this will not be the last time that you see these two fellows sitting behind here. In terms of where we're going, this is where it started. We're gonna expand the vision of this. We're gonna start with a Vermont local fellow that will be with us out throughout the calendar year. They'll have access to the space, certainly for writing and writing retreat purposes, but more than that, they'll have access to our growing network of book publishers, literary agents, manuscript reviewers, as we tap local Vermont writers of color who are in various stages of manuscript production and just basically be as much of a support as we can. That person will also help us launch what's going to be a writing workshop in the summertime. They also have patients for the incoming fellows. So that's kind of a little bit of what's to come. So in terms of thanks, we're 2 years in. We've built tiny homes, living mobile writing studios where these folks live. They're paid to be here. They're given a $2,000 stipend. All their travel, all their meals are taken care of. 100% of our funds have come from the state of Vermont. So I will just pause here and say the Vermont Community Foundation has been extraordinarily supportive from the very beginning. Thank you. The Vermont's Arts Council, the Fund for North Bennington, Clearbrook Farms, just to shout out like a lot of like, the local old brick furniture store is like donated the mattresses you guys are sleeping on. It's been really lovely to see folks come out of the woodwork to want to support this. I want to thank our board members, Brian Michael Murphy, who, when one can persuade you to rock the middle name always, like you got some swag about it. Arlette Hernandez, a former student of mine from Washington and Lee University who works at MoMA in New York. Tim Murray, and then Hillary Clark. I really want to thank you. She brings the well-being component to this with her expertise in myofascial release, dance, movement steps, really kind of unlocking or linking, I think what you say, lean into the intelligence of the body to really kind of help them unlock aspects of their work and just of their own self-care. And so I really appreciate you being a part of this team this year. Deb, as we were talking about, we were able to bring Ashley Yeager, who's a yoga instructor from the Williamstown area, who's been with our fellows on a weekly basis, which has been really, really special. So I'll somewhat stop there. So none of this happens without fundraising. You'll notice little kind of signs saying, scan here, donate to us, and do all that. Just to explain a little bit what's going on as we move into this next stage, all of the Vermont Arts Council, the Vermont Community Foundation, the folks that we've been able to hit up for grants and that have been really energized by this, community is now really going to matter even more as we move into kind of year 3 through 5 of this. And yes, from a financial perspective, a bit, it'll be great to raise substantial money from a community that wants to support this. But more than that is just the numbers of folks who we can say support us, right? So please give tonight. No donation is kind of too small. You will receive an email from me once you get the donation asking if you don't mind if we publicize your name. Basically on our gratitude page, we're going to put a collection of local community members and folks who are not so local who I know have already given that support us. That's going to be really helpful for us from a grant writing perspective to say we are making an impact here. These folks are supporting what we do. Bat and Kill Books. Eve, the book fire from back there, if you haven't been to Bat and Kill Books, it's in Cambridge, the only non-Vermont aspect of this, which just shows you how dope they are. They have a collection of books from our current and former fellows, as well as BIPOC writers throughout the states. Nico Amador, who's with us here, is one of them. Reg Hezekiah, who's back there, is one of them. Welcome. I'm not going to be people to sign and buy things from. But in addition, in terms of being exposed to some tremendous work coming out of this state, Bat and Kill has been kind enough to donate some of the proceeds from the sales to the Outpost Foundation. So if you do buy a book and you also want to be kind of noted on our thing, Eve will hand you a sheet where you can put your name so we can keep track of that. And so even something as simple as buying a book is going to really do a lot to help us out. So with that said, these people. So I'm going to start with you, Azina. Now, just to give you a sense of how highly I think of these folks. We went through over 80 applications to select our 2 fellows this year, which also shows you how much, just by word of mouth, Outpost has grown since its first cohort, to now. And the quality of work was rather extraordinary. Go back to our Instagram page. You can look at the finalists that we named. They're all doing amazing stuff. But we were taken by you, right? And I would say we are drawn to emerging and early career artists. I will put you in the category of emerging artist, and your talent and your clear sense of direction were startling for us, right? And I think in this particular moment, it was just apparent that you fit what we want to do here to a T. You have a knack of unraveling kind of oversimple notions of diaspora. And as I'm sure I don't know what's being read, but in our brief conversation, you have an intuition that is both drawn to and not afraid of kind of the dark and the tender. In terms of a typical biography, you're a published poet, who's also starting to make forays into fiction, short fiction. You hail from the Pacific Northwest and has published work in Now Rouge Journal, Rogue Agent Journal, Nymphs, Agapanthus Collective, and others. Her poetry trap book, What Gets Left Over, was published with Bottle Cap Books in 2022 and is on sale back there. But you're also committed to serving the broader literary landscape and has edited at such journals as Hectate Magazine, Wrong Publishing, the Jupiter Review, and Longleaf Review. We are fortunate to have you in our presence, so if you can come up here and grace us with it, that would be fantastic.
Wow, what a lovely intro. Thank you. Hi, I'm Azine. As Ricardo said, I'm from the Pacific Northwest, Seattle specifically. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay. Should I talk louder? Louder? Okay, great. Yeah, so thank you so much for having me. This is my first time in Vermont, and it's really beautiful, and everyone has been so kind, so I'm really happy to be here. So, as Ricardo said, I had a poetry chapbook published last year with Bottle Cap. It is called What Gets Left Over. It's on sale back there. And that is also the name of this piece. Dreaming, I saw your face. I said, you look happy. You said, yeah, I am. Took my arm in a spasm of chivalry. I woke up gasping, my eyes already wet. Taxidermy, the only word I have for this. An alternate reality that shocking, he mumbles, lit cigarette and smiling, how his teeth look in my arm, rendered insignificant. One day our eyes won't matter anymore because they'll be strewn with holes from where worms are feasting, holes growing slowly bigger and connecting like tunnels in a labyrinth of rotting flesh, until there is just one huge hole, one void where your cold body has disappeared into, one chasm in the dirt, yawning, stretching, filling with reeking new life. Rebirth is not beautiful or clean, and it always takes a piece of the dead with it. Thank you. I'm gonna take this out, if that's possible. Oh, okay. Got it, thank you. Sorry. Okay, perfect. This next one is called A Hand Hitting a Face 3 Ways. 1. Metamorphic. Underbelly of desire, seamy and racing. A high that comes on too fast. You are left wanting, edgy. You ask for it again, seeking the delicious moment of shock when your racing thoughts drop off into silence. You are an animal. Your body shelves the pain to savor later. They make you beg for another. 2. Red. Wrote. I know you've seen it before. A tale you never thought you'd have to tell, shattered glass slipper on the floor, bloody obsolescence. You can't see without your contact lenses, and telling him makes no difference. Oh yes, there is a him, though his inclusion elicits only yawns and shifting glances. We will leave him, and you, in a cobweb place far behind us. 3. Dissension. Is the hand yours, or is it your mother's? Did the impact even occur? Maybe it is all in your mind. Maybe the sting comes from words and not from flesh. You are bruised fruit all the same, a soft place for the flies to sink their feet into. You are infinitely compostable. Desiring severance, you decide to fall in love with people based on the strength of their grip alone. The irony does not escape you. Thank you. So this next piece was published in Nowruz Journal a year ago. They are an online-only magazine that publishes work from Iranian-American writers, and they're really amazing, so I definitely recommend checking them out. My mother teaches me how to make khoresh karafs over FaceTime. For the dissonance of my heritage, for the fact that I was too hungry, for the consternation in your face when you saw the simmering celery, lime green instead of forest. For every name you have for me, I am composting the congealed rice. For all of this, I am letting the produce grow white fuzz. I will not attempt to make you proud again. A generation too late to hear the secrets of a 3-hour stew. Let it all become a charred heap. The celery and I, we have never been the right shade. I would have told you if you could take a shortcut. Look at that, it's not salvageable. Good, that makes 2 of us. Saffronic aromas wander my apartment for nobody. Nobody here to show me the difference between standards and stereotypes. The man at the Persian grocery store switched to English for me, and I said kheli mamnoon. I said lazem nist. I said it doesn't matter what you speak to me because there is no language in which I can respond. Thank Thank you. Let's do a happy one now, and then I'll go back to making you guys sad after that. Ricardo, do we have the speaker? Awesome. So when I first got to Shaftesbury, it was nighttime and it was raining, and when I stepped out of the Uber, it was like the most incredible wall of sound that I had never heard before. Where I live, it's mostly just city noise and just the birds and the bugs and the frogs, I think, here. I know what frogs are. It was just really amazing. So I wrote a poem about it, and while we listen to that poem, I'm going to play a recording that I took last night, if I can get it set up. Perfect. And then I invite you, after I finish, for us all to just listen to the sounds for a couple breaths. Cool. Shaftesbury sounds. Stepping out of the car, my first breath of Vermont air, raining at night. A wall of sound slams into my ears, so physical it feels like being shaken. Auditory ambush from those little lifelong enemies of mine, creatures with too many legs. Tiny civilizations scream in the tall grass. Chirping solos start and stop, layer their tunes unintentionally. Do the wildflower bugs know that when their high pitch blends with the deeper croak of the frogs in the pond, it sounds beautiful? Do they have any use for pride? In the morning, the song continues. Cicada, cricket, grasshopper, honeybee, sparrow, jay, eagle, backyard chicken. I think this music might be magic, because when I sit here and listen to it, really listen, my limbs go languid, soft, my body thrumming with the rhythm of the pollinators. My mind takes a break from sprinting and lays in the reeds by the pond, listens day and night to a symphony that was written by nobody, for nobody, the player's legion, the melody ever-changing and undying. When the sun goes down, the darkness sings me to sleep, and it's more soothing than any white noise app or synthesized ambience video. It isn't right to compare it to the coldness of the internet, this hot roar of chorus purpose, this hydra-throated song of joining and division, this unmistakably organic octaval drifting. Why did I ever think silence was the ultimate peace? Thank you. I'm not sure if you could actually hear that, but. Okay, back to making you guys sad. I just want to give a content warning for this one for body dysmorphia and disordered eating, like pretty explicit depiction of it. Please take care of yourselves. Listening to my poem is not as important as your well-being, so if you need to step out, I will not be offended. The other version. The version of me that starves is smoking on a dirty white porch, greedy for a no-calorie treat. The version of me that starves is pole-bruised on her shins. The version of me that starves isn't afraid of queasy stomachs, watches bloody horror with buttered popcorn and Swedish fish on the couch. The version of me that starves still talks to her mother. The version of me that starves has been in 2 music videos and might be in a 3rd. She grits her teeth through core workouts. She always takes the stairs. She knows a thing or two about discipline. Thank you very much. Quote, discipline comes from power, power affords control, and power and beauty are the same, unquote. She thinks this way a lot, makes up strange little idioms that don't mean anything. She doesn't ever write them down. Why would she need to write about her life when she is out here living it? The version of me that starves doesn't starve the way I do. For her, it is clean and pure. Her body becomes a reliquary. Her mind a cut diamond, hard and sharp and clear. Her bones inch closer to the surface every time I see her. I don't want you to think she's a bad person. She is not a liar or a thief. She reads a lot of memoirs from important people. Sometimes she laughs out loud on the bus. She is sympathetic, endlessly sympathetic. Look, it's her in the oversized taupe sweater, normal as can be. She's not even really starving because if she wanted to eat, she could, very easily. It's a lifestyle choice, like how you choose to bike to work sometimes instead of driving. You see how she forces me to advocate for her. I learn a lot from the version of me that starves, but she doesn't know I exist. She has never seen me laugh on the couch with my love until tears gild our eyes. She's never heard me read a poem. She is numb to the joy I hold in this flesh. I'm a specter on the margin of her life, threatening myself with myself. Thank you. That was a new one. Actually, both of the previous ones were new and written here. This is my last poem, and fittingly, it's called The End. I was born at the end of the world, my tongue forgetting water forever, radiation pockmarks already on my soft skull. I was born at the end of the world. Every weekend we drive to the Burnside, watch black sludge lap at trash heaps, and eat Spam sandwiches. I was born at the end of the world. The family dog, toothless and eyeless, answers to no name. I was born at the end of the world. My grandparents spoke of seasons, but my sky is an eternal orange haze. I was born at the end of the world, but it's not so bad. The billionaires flew away in a silver ship, and we ate the millionaires. I was born at the end of the world, the first generation without war. There isn't much left to fight over. There isn't much left to wait for. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay. Azin, thank you so much. Bruna, I'm going to start with the bio that you sent me. There's a lot to get through. Early as we may be in our career, but I'll maybe ad-lib a little bit from there. So Bruna Dantas Lobato is a Brazilian writer and literary translator based in St. Louis. She holds an MFA in fiction from NYU, an MFA in literary translation from the University of Iowa, and a BA in literature from Bennington College, class of 2015. Her translations include The Worlds That Remain by Stenio Gardel. This is the one that was just longlisted for the National Book Award in translation. The Dark Side of Skin by Jefferson Tenorio, winner of an English Pen Translates Award. And Moldy Strawberries by, longlisted for the Pen Translation Prize. She also has a children's book that was just translated that is for sale back there that I am going to get my hands on for my son Tanner. Her fiction has appeared in The New Yorker, Guernica, A Public Space, and The Common, among other places. And if this weren't enough, and this is the second time this has happened, that we've accepted a fellow, and between their acceptance and their arrival, they've signed a book contract. And this is, though we're live streaming, somewhat private news, not to announce beyond this room. Her debut novel, right now still titled Blue Light Hours, is forthcoming in September 2024 from Grove Atlantic in the US and simultaneously from Penguin Random House in Brazil. So I want to say congratulations for that. And I'm going to tell you, I feel the energy in this room. So on behalf of you, let's just send this out here. Longlisted for the National Book Award. You are a winner in my heart. But what we really want is for you to get to the next stage, because as Bruna has shared, if this happens, then you get to hang out with Oprah in New York. So put that out there for what comes next. But in all seriousness, in you I found a kindred spirit. This has been a beautiful experience. You have a tenacious work ethic and a compassionate soul, which is about the most incredible combination, and I am excited to see what comes next for you, and I'm excited to hear you read. Thank you for joining us. Yeah.
Thank you so much. What a lovely, lovely group. I can already tell. Good vibes all around. And thank you, Azin, for that beautiful reading, and to Ricardo and Meredith for having us, and Hillary and Ashley and Brian Murphy, Michael Murphy, forgive me. And everyone, honestly, like you said, everyone has been so warm, so welcoming. It's a pleasure to be back here after years away to, go live my life. And now I'm thrilled to be back. I love this place. In many ways, I never left because I write about it all the time, as you will see in a bit. I will be reading from this novel I've been revising that will come out next year. Ricardo said currently titled Blue Light Hours because every day I change the title. Every hour, yeah, more like every hour, but this is the title for now, and let's hope it sticks because it has to stick at some point. We're sending it out for blurbs in November, so whoosh. Okay, it is set in Vermont, southern Vermont, and it is about a daughter living abroad in the United States and her mother in Brazil and the relationship they forge over video calls on Skype. Snow started to leave a tinge of lifelessness on everything, and I stopped going outside, stayed indoors as much as I could in layers of fleece. Everyone left the campus for warmer places for the break, and I stayed there, in the dorm that looked like a milk carton with its modern shape and single white gable, never went anywhere too far from it. In the afternoons, I worked at the campus mailroom where I watched the stacks of letters grow unopened. I put slim envelopes in their slots. I sorted Amazon deliveries, media mail, care packages in padded envelopes sent priority from loving parents. Dabrowski, Dunn, Dunton. There was intimacy in watching the movements of the campus, the coming and going, even in everyone's absence. Then, in the evenings, I went back to my room and read until I ran out of pages. Then I called my mom on Skype, and she answered on the first ring. She was always already there when I rang her these days, to the point where I'd started to think of my computer as the mother aquarium. I walked away, went to work, went about my day, and when I came back, there she was as if she'd never left, inside her tank. "And have you been eating?" she asked. "Have you been going outside, being careful out there, washing your undies in the shower like I taught you?" She worried about me all alone on campus. She worried about me in the dead of winter. She worried about me living so far away, alone in America. She'd watched a movie about a couple of girls left behind at a boarding school upstate. The snow made the campus look bleak. Emma Roberts had dark circles under her eyes. Everyone died. "Don't go down into the basement," she said. "Avoid long hallways. Don't go out late at night." When she heard on the news that a snowstorm was passing through Vermont, she emailed me to ask if I needed company. "A friend to marvel at the thunder with," she wrote. I called her as soon as I woke up, before I ate my breakfast. "I've never seen a snowstorm," she said. She brought her face closer to the screen. "Where is it?" "It's over," I said. I showed her my window. The sky looked blank like a sheet, icicles hanging from the frame like teeth in a child's drawing. Sunlight flooded the webcam, and for a moment my corner of the screen was all white. I reappeared as a silhouette, and then as my full self again. "Call me if something happens, while it's still happening," she said. "I want to see it live." Then she went on to list every storm fact she knew. Sandstorms on Mars, other storms on the moon, every tragedy on Earth. Floods, tsunamis, earthquakes. She talked until I had to say, "Mom, it's getting late. I have to get ready for work." On a particularly cold day, I sent my mother a picture of the snow falling onto the soccer field out my window, which I knew she found serene, beautiful even, but this time she found it scary. "Does walking outside feel like being buried alive?" she asked. And I said that it didn't, though the truth was that sometimes it did. I'd have to dust the snow off my shoulders and the creases in my coat before I walked in, my legs heavy, my jaw stiff, my hands burning. She told me to stay indoors as much as I could, not to leave my room again until it was warm outside. Then she shook her head. "No, don't listen to me." She yawned, then looked past me at something behind her screen. A lock of her hair fell on her eyes, and she didn't move it away. It was later there than where I was, way past midnight. I let her go to bed, and I stayed up all the lights in my room still on. I sat in front of the computer, wondering what I should do next now that I was alone. The Victorian novels I had to read for the upcoming semester sat unopened on my desk. I felt it would take too much effort to enter their world that night, to move between Brazil and the United States and then England in the course of a day. The computer screen went dark, and I saw my own face reflected in it. I looked pale and tired, papery even, as if covered in mildew. I got up and splashed cold water on my face in the bathroom down the hall, then put on my coat and boots and went out on a walk. From the middle of the soccer field, in the dark, I could see into my bedroom on the 3rd floor and into the bedrooms of my neighbors. A shadow moved across the room. 2 girls laughed together in another, tilting back their heads with no sound. In my room, the window framed a perfect image of stillness. The whole world seemed to quieten down for that moment, for me to look at what my life looks like. I called her again when I thought she'd be awake, and her face glowed in the dark, lit up by nothing but the computer screen. "Were you asleep?" "The light was giving me a headache," she said, and took her hand to her brow. Everything gave her migraines in those days. She felt dizzy, her ears rang, her eyes twitched. To protect herself, she had to live in a world of blandness, often in silence, often in the dark, warm gauze over her eyes. It occurred to me that she'd love the milk carton and the campus, the carpeted halls and the snow muffling every sound, the flavorless dining hall food, the constant darkness, nighttime always spilling into mornings. I told her this and she said, "Can you imagine if the moment I got there and ate your food and slept on your bed and walked around in your clothes, I was suddenly cured?" I told her about my walk to the soccer field. She smiled and said, "So it turns out you do listen to what I say." I do. "Just don't go on these walks when it's dark out," she said. "Have you heard about the Filipino student who got murdered somewhere in New York last week? Not too far from you." I laughed, happy that she was back to being so unmistakably herself. When winter break was almost over, my mother emailed me to say that she'd received the package I'd sent her for Christmas, a few weeks too late when I'd already forgotten about it. On Skype, she waited with the box on her lap so we could open it together, her hands on my address. "I can't believe this came all the way from America," she said. She turned the box to the screen to show me the customs label I'd filled out. "Look, I'm touching your handwriting," she said. "Might as well be touching your hand." She cut the tape open with her kitchen shears and found the card I'd written for her, a brown dog running down a snowy hill. "Read it to me," I said. "Querida mãe," she said, "Feliz Natal." But then she couldn't make out what the rest of it said. "Your handwriting has changed," she said. "I can barely recognize it." "I don't write in cursive anymore," I said. "Not since I was a kid." "That's it," she said. "It's very grown up now. I no longer see my little girl in it." "Show it to me and I'll read it." She placed the open card in front of the camera, and I tried to make sense of what I'd written, but all I saw was a blur, neat lines of blur. She went through the rest of the contents of the box, a tiny bottle of maple syrup, a little bag of peppermint candy, a blue shawl. She put the computer on the coffee table, then stood up and draped the shawl over her shoulders, swaying from side to side. "It's like a hug," she said, "a cocoon." She sat back down and curled up on the couch, covering the length of her body with it, the shawl as a blanket, all the way up to her chin. "Will you talk me to sleep?" I nodded, but then I couldn't think of anything to say. I thought maybe I could read her a story instead, something soothing, nothing like the news. I looked around my room for a book in Portuguese, something we could both understand, and then I realized there was nothing. All the books around me were in English, and every flyer, magazine, brochure, even my own diaries. "Read in English then," she said. "I don't mind. I just want to hear your voice." She closed her eyes and waited, stroking the tassels at the edge of the shawl. I grabbed one of the Victorian novels I'd been studying and opened it to a random page. I told her all it said about orphans and fortunes and fate. I read for what felt like an hour, 28 pages worth of story. Sometimes she nodded, until she didn't, her lids shut, her head heavy over one shoulder. And then what? Was I supposed to hang up on her, on my own mother? I muted my mic and kept watch for most of the night. Her occasional stirs, her face glowing in the dark, her hair over her eyes, the restlessness of her sleep. Should I read one? How long have I been reading for? Okay. Okay, I'll read a different chapter. So I wanted to choose something somewhat representative of the novel. So half of it is in the first person. It's the daughter's perspective of this, ethereal life through a screen, hence the blue light hours of the title. But the other half, I wanted it to be from the mother's perspective, so we get to see what an empty house feels like and what it feels like to come of age as an adult too, when your life changes so completely. So they both have their coming of age. And then eventually there's also a reunion chapter, and I wanted something a little happier, a little uplifting, so I'm gonna read from the reunion chapter. She only went back home for funerals. Her visa made it hard for her to travel, and she couldn't get time off work. She owed her mother many Christmases, New Year's Eves, countless birthdays. To settle her debt, she bought her mother a cheap ticket to New York with an 8-hour layover in Panama City and another 4 hours in Miami. Her mother had never been on a plane, didn't speak a word of English, and wasn't sure how to prepare. "Just follow my instructions," the daughter said, and she wrote her mother a meticulous itinerary and a script for the customs interview. Her mother memorized some phrases in English. "I'm traveling alone. I'm visiting for 3 weeks. My daughter lives here." Through Skype, the daughter then helped her mother pack, told her to leave all her tropical clothes and sandals at home, to bring nothing but black and beige sweaters and sensible closed-toe shoes. She watched her mother, with disheveled hair and dark circles under her eyes, roll her socks and underwear and fit them into small crevices in her suitcase between special coffee and guava candy that reminded her of childhood. The night before the reunion, while her sweet mother flew over an ocean and snacked on peanuts next to a cosmopolitan teenage couple, the daughter drank 3 bottles of Corona as she scrubbed the bathroom sink and toilet, washed all the crusty pots and pans piled up on the stove, and threw away the containers of rice and meat that had spoiled in the fridge. She headed to the basement and washed her only comforter, musty and with faded blue stripes, so that her mother would be warm on the chilly New York nights. The daughter eventually slept, but her mother didn't. She just covered her legs with the flimsy blanket they had given her and waited. The teenagers put on an animated film that they didn't watch, their eyes covered with silk eye masks, the boy taking up all of the armrest. Another mother across the aisle held her child in her arms while she ate dinner, sometimes bouncing him gently when he threatened to cry. The mother quickly polished off her own meal, penne pasta with marinara and a slice of brownie. The lights went dim on the plane, and she continued her waiting in the dark. The little plane moved slowly over the world map on the screen in front of her, and she willed it to move faster so that she could be comfortable and safe with her daughter, with no script to remember, no maps to follow, no heavy bags to carry. The sun came up as they were about to land in Panama. Squinting, she was able to see green mountains and a country road before she shut her window shade. She hadn't gone to the bathroom once so as not to disturb the teens, and her pants were getting uncomfortably tight around the waist. At the third airport, the coffee she was bringing her daughter got inspected. The TSA officer grabbed the jar and said something she couldn't understand. When she reached for it to show him what was inside, he yelled, then he yanked it away from her and never gave it back. She filled out her forms with a pen she'd brought from home and managed to remember all her English phrases. She got her picture taken and her fingerprints scanned. People in uniform said, "This way, ma'am," and gestured with their arms to hallway after hallway. In New York, she saw her daughter first, staring at another family's welcome back sign. The mother ran up to her and squeezed her arms, grabbed her hand, hugged her tight, surprised by how solid her daughter felt, how alive and textured and full of breath she was after years of being only a pixelated image online. The daughter kept staring at the mother, still waiting for the mother to fully arrive in her mind, to look less like a cardboard cutout against the backdrop of that American airport. The daughter said, "I can't believe you're here," and the mother said, "I can't believe you're real." They stepped outside the airport, holding onto each other's arms. The mother marveled at how she could see her own breath. The air smelled icy. A thick fog blocked the view from the windows of the train from JFK. The trees along the way had no leaves. Panting, the daughter carried the carefully packed bags up to her fifth-floor walk-up. The mother's face lit up as she finally took in her daughter's private world, a place she'd only ever seen through the computer screen, much like the famous attractions of the city she'd only ever seen on TV. She walked from one site to the next, her gray bob swaying softly from side to side. Ah, that throw pillow, that painting, that couch. I recognize this one, she said as she grabbed a small pearlescent vase from the edge of a bookshelf, a perfect dustless circle left behind where it had stood for years. The daughter held her mother's other hand, which felt smaller in hers than she remembered, shriveled up, and she kissed it. In the kitchen, the daughter placed fresh bread in a basket and poured hot water into a real teapot, then rested teacups on their proper saucers and served tea to her mother with pre-cut melon in heavy bowls. She never did these things on her own in her life of peanut butter sandwiches over the kitchen sink and dollar slices on the street. She also made a fresh pot of coffee in a pour-over dripper while the black tea, which neither of them had the habit of drinking, got cold. It was mostly ceremonial, an excuse to bring out the best of her things. They both took their coffee with milk and no sugar. They ate the fruit, then slices of buttered bread, quickly, in between sips. The daughter poured another cup of coffee and another. They confiscated the coffee I was bringing you, the mother said. Pilon, your favorite. I'm sorry, the daughter said. And I got lost so many times. Were you scared? The daughter asked. At first, but then things started to happen just as you said they would. There were arrows everywhere at the airport, and they led me right to you. You really were at the end of the longest hallway, just as you promised. And the flying? I thought I'd feel lighter, weightless even, but it wasn't that different from being in an elevator. I felt tight and heavy the whole time. The daughter nodded. Soon the table was covered in crumbs and brown rings of coffee from the bottom of their mugs, and the daughter brought hers to her lips, only then realizing that it was empty again. She put it down next to the fancy little cups of tea, still full. The mother admired the tidy home, her daughter's elegant taste in bedding and furniture, though it was mostly from IKEA. The sun set before 5, and she found this unsettling. The daughter suggested using her happy light to make this day last a bit longer. She pressed the button, and their faces shone. The white walls an otherworldly bluish hue. The mother gasped, delighted and shocked that one could have so much control over one's day. My daughter, she said, living in a shoebox in New York City with a lamp for sunlight. At night, after they'd eaten the guava candy and brushed their teeth, the daughter made a bed for her mother on the pull-out couch in the living room, the warmest room in the apartment, and her mother, so sore and tired after the journey, fell asleep quickly. She didn't remember to say goodnight or ask if her daughter had an extra pillow so that she could elevate her legs. The daughter tried to sleep but couldn't. She felt jet-lagged, though she wasn't the one who traveled. Under her bed in her tiny bedroom was a box of secrets not worth keeping, but not worth revealing either. A purple vibrator, a bottle of whiskey, a bottle of prescription sleeping pills. Out in the open, resting on the shelves in the living room, all around her sleeping mother, Christmas cards from old roommates, postcards from distant friends, coffee table books filled with appetizing dishes in far-flung places, anything to make her look more impressive, even if she suspected they had little effect. Her mother hadn't paid any mind to these items, which had been arranged so neatly for her benefit. She was focused on the real details of how her daughter lived in that place, on the things that helped her daughter get by. What do you make with this? She'd asked, pointing at a mixer. And where do you do your laundry? Her own home was practical. Every surface was lined with the detritus of her days, pills in their sleeves, cookbooks, scissors next to an open package, nothing decorative, nothing vain, except for photos of her daughter in foreign places, London, Lisbon, Los Angeles, that she liked to show to every friend and delivery person. The daughter realized too late, after too much restlessness, that she'd forgotten to take her sleeping pills that night. After 5 hours of interrupted sleep, she finally pushed her blankets to one side and tiptoed to see if her mother looked comfortable. The whole apartment was dark, with only a sliver of light coming from the corridor outside shining under the front door. The daughter turned on a lamp. Her mother was gripping the hem of the comforter with one hand and hiding the other under the pillow. She wore a white nightgown with a ruffled trim that made her look like a child. Her chest rose and fell slowly, and the daughter admired how peaceful she looked, not at all like she just arrived in a foreign country and now slept in a makeshift bed in someone else's tiny apartment. Still, the daughter couldn't resist trying to wake her. She touched her arm and whispered, "Mom, wake up. I'll make us some breakfast." The mother mumbled something and turned to the other side, her mouth slightly open, her silver hair spread all over the pillow, her hands now pressed together under her face as if in prayer. "I'm sorry," the daughter said as she leaned over, her hand hovering over her mother's head. "I'll let you rest." The daughter was suddenly struck with the realization that her mother had no idea where she was. She didn't know these streets and would never be able to find her way back on her own. Her daughter was supposed to shelter her, guide her, help her get back when the time came. She trusted her daughter to do this and had given her body over for safekeeping. Her daughter had to keep an eye on her to make sure she didn't wake up on the pull-out couch alone, to make sure she didn't get confused. The daughter walked into the bright kitchen. Daylight had just started to appear in the window above the sink, the kitchen immersed in a cold shade of purple. She opened the fridge and stared, thinking of what to prepare for the day. Soon her mother would arise, face her, talk like they hadn't been apart for 5 years, a whole lifetime. She squeezed the juice of an orange into a glass, warmed up a piece of bread in the toaster oven, brewed a strong cup of coffee, arranged everything neatly on a tray she'd never had any occasion to use. In the living room, her mother dreamed she was really flying. That's it. Thank you. Thank you.
It's like you timed that. That was great. All right, let me just take a picture very quickly. Fantastic. Okay, I want folks to mingle. We have books to buy. You have people to meet. Like I said before, Nico, can you raise your hand? Rage, raise your hand. Their books are also for sale, so if you want to talk to them, feel free. This was extraordinary. Thank you all for coming. I have to end by thanking my wife and my son. This is so personal for us. Yeah, we're thanking you, buddy. This is so personal for us, and she's been a part of this vision from the beginning, and so is Tanner, a reason for this. So mingle, buy food, drinks if you need to, books, talk. I appreciate y'all.